Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Alright, Kay, it's about time I told you about one of my special friends. I'll call him Nike. Nike grew up in a country area, but he and his brothers spent most of their time fishing and playing sports. He didn't spend any time in Innawoods, and he'd never owned a gun before he met me. Nike has a ton of street smarts, but not many book smarts. That's kinda important. These are relatively short, so no Greentext. The first time Nike and I went camping, around 2003 to 2004, he'd never been camping before. At this point, he owned an SKS and had shot it maybe a dozen times. It was Friday night, and he had worked late. He came to my house about 9, and we watched a few movies, got some sleep, then packed up early to make the 2-hour drive to my normal car camping site on our family's farm. We get there, and Nike has no idea how to Innawoods. He spent 45 minutes trying to put together my 2-pole tent while I unpacked. We spent the day fishing in the pond, shooting, trying to smoke a groundhog out of the pond dam, a great story on its own, and cooking a copious amount of meat on the campfire. Night comes, and a dew develops on the grass. Nike is out walking around and comes back to the fire complaining about wet feet. I tell him to take his shoes off and sit close to the campfire to dry both his shoes and his socks, which he's wearing. He sits there for maybe 2 minutes, and a slight steam starts to develop around his toes. He starts screaming, "Ow!" and grabs his toes and says they're burning. I look at him for a minute, trying to discern if he's this dumb or something else is wrong. I say, "Well, scoot back a little, dumbass." He does, and it appears all is well in Nike's world. The previous night we had watched Dreamcatcher, and I had told him various spoopy stories regarding skunk apes, the dogmen of Bray Road, and the beast of the Pine Barrens. This was years before /x/or/k/ and the first spoopy story thread on ARFCOM, so I didn't even know about skinwalkers, or deermen, or goatmen yet. I had hoped to hunt some coons that night with a little Savage Model 24.22 LR, .410 that I'd been shooting since grade school. About an hour after dark, Nike had gotten jumpy at every little sound, and I have a feeling the previous night's movies and stories were sneaking back into memory. About 2 hours after dark, we heard some noises coming from the tree line. Nike was at DEF CON, super spoop. In the 3 seconds it took me to look away from him to the tree line and then back to him, he had gone from sitting casually leaning backward on his palms to standing in a shoulder-width attack stance with a loaded SKS, and was in the process of flicking off the safety. I chuckle to myself and say, "Let's go check it out." I grab my SAR-1, rack around into the chamber, and we walk to the tree line. Back then, there weren't a lot of Magnum pocket flashlights, but I did have a big-ass lead-acid battery-powered spotlight with about a 10-inch lens. It cut the night pretty good, but nothing besides daylight lets you see past 30 feet or so in thick woods. It's fall and well into the deer rut. The ground is covered with leaves, and we can hear something stomping around back in the woods near the green dots. It's hissing and spitting, and sounds generally unpleasant. Before I can say anything, Nike says, "What? What the fuck is that? What is that?" in a loud whisper. In the past, I'd found some weasels or skinks or some sort of other snake cats living near the purple circle, so I say, "It's probably just a weasel." Wrong answer. "Weasel? You ain't getting me, you goddamn shit weasels." He starts firing. He spins on his heels and sprints back to camp. When I turn around, he's kneeling behind a camp chair with his rifle hung over the top, bayonet extended. My sides have left orbit and are headed directly for the Oort cloud. I'm laughing so hard I can barely get a word out. After that, we call it a night, decide to drink a case of beer and go to bed. I had one of those emergency LED lights that would run like 96 hours off a set of 4 AA batteries, and I'd hang it from the top of the tent with a single LED on so we could find our way in and out of the tent in the dark. We get in the tent, and Nike is spooning his rifle hard. Seriously, the bayonet is all that's sticking out of the top of his sleeping bag. My rifle is in the tent, but I'm messing around with one of the Glock knives I'd just gotten. I set it next to my sleeping bag and go to sleep. At some point in the night, Nike had to vent excess coolant and he got out of the tent. On his way back in, I don't think he zipped either the flap or screen shut before cocooning back up with his rifle. I'm laying there, with my head near the flap, asleep. I'm awoken by the sound of something walking around maybe 15 feet away from the tent. I'm kind of awake, but my eyes are still closed, and all of a sudden I smell this terrible smell. I open my eyes and... fucking DEFCON nuke from goddamn orbit. This shadowy thing is 3 inches from my goddamn face. Fist don't fail me now. I grab the Glock knife and turn into goddamn E Honda. Back to hell's heart I stab at thee. No goddamn shitweasel is getting my ass tonight. This thing brays like a goddamn donkey and rears back. Nike wakes up just in time to see me stabbing the devil in the scrotum as the whole top of the tent rips off. He's hugging his rifle, screaming. I'm in full war cry, covered in the devil's nut blood, as I hop to my feet to continue stabbing. The devil turns tail and runs back to the 2 does standing near the tree line with the roof of our tent and one of the tent poles stuck in his antlers. We packed up and went home.
Hog hunting in southeast Louisiana. Probably slightly more than 2 miles into Buddy's property, he owns several square miles out past Nowhere's asshole. Brush has been almost too dense to walk through the entire way. Suddenly nothing. No grass, no trees, not even bugs. No life present at all, just uninhabited dirt, in a damn near perfect circle approximately 60 feet wide. At the center of the circle is a funky-looking little tree, almost like a tallow tree, but the leaves didn't match anything we have locally. It also felt rubbery, fake even. Weirdest part was the color. This little guy was safety orange, not like airsoft cap orange, the fluorescent kind you would see in industrial sites. Pull out my phone and drop a pin to the hunting party, and continue on. Once the party reaches the outroad in the middle of the property, we start talking about findings. Group decides to trek back to my pin just to see. We get there, and the circle is now inhabited with the greenest, prettiest ryegrass you've ever seen. No little tree. This is a food plot, dipshit. I stood in a circle of death and disease, touched some kind of poison tree, and was then called crazy for another hour because LOL just crazy.
Accumulated a ton of vacation time at work. Decide to blow it all on a solo camping trip. State Park area is primitive camping friendly, so I head there. Hike a few miles, stopping to bullshit with other people every now and then, while looking for a good spot to set up. Near a river, I set up my hammock and my rain fly about 10 feet in the tree line. Cook some dollar store noodles in a can over my wood stove, add some summer sausage and cheese and enjoy. Check my watch, 7-something. Hop in my hammock, get set for a super comfy night. Watching my fire die from my stove a couple yards away. Faint glow now, about to close my eyes. See a small shape move up to my stove and bend over it. Looks like a kid. Grab my flashlight and light it up. Little girl, about 7 years old, snaps her head towards me. Look into her eyes. Barely any white in her eyes, mostly jet black. Pale face with dark brown hair and a red bow thing that's a headband. You probably know what I'm talking about. Wearing a dress that's like denim and plaid straight from the 90s. Adrenaline starts pumping, hard to break my eyes away from hers. The most unnatural feeling I've ever felt overcomes me. My toes start going cold, starts walking towards me. Nope.png. Fall over backwards in my hammock and kind of backpedal. She's steadily advancing. Says, "Will you help me find my family?" Oh, hell, please no. Run towards the trailhead. Hear breathing and laughing around me as I'm running. Reach the trailhead and bang on the service area door. Ranger working night lets me in and asks what's up. Too out of breath to say anything yet. Look out the window. She's standing just in the tree line at the start of the trail. Slinks back into the woods. I tell the ranger. He thinks I've been doing psychedelics. Tells me to stay with him so he can protect me. No, he's patronizing me, but I don't care. Next day when the sun's up, I go with him to get my gear. Camping trip was cut short. Drive home and try to rationalize this shit.
It's a bit late in this thread, but here goes. Move in new, to me, farmhouse. 5 miles from anything. 6 barns on property. 10 acres total, surrounded by trees. Just settle into the house. House is 130 years old. Single pane windows, carbon tetrachloride fire extinguishers, etc. Previous owner just left the house with everything inside it 2 years ago, including food on the table, beautiful full moon night. Decide to go for a walk and smoke around the property. .17 slung around my shoulder in case coyotes come out. No property light yet. Just go into my barns looking at all the old tractors and shit. Hear coyotes howling like mad. Hold the rifle at low ready, just in case one is close. Howling gets closer and closer. Perch on top of one of the barns. Moon is so bright, you don't need lights. I can see the tree line a couple miles out. See a shadowy figure of one of those 4-legged hog killing machines come close through my trees. Wait for the right shot. Howling stops abruptly, which isn't unusual. Hear something rustling around one of the barns to the south. I'm in the northernmost barn. Look in the direction and can't see anything. Decided to flash my iPhone flashlight in the direction. It's a fucking beaver. Don't shoot for fear of missing and hitting my propane tank. Get down from the barn and go back inside. I know this one wasn't spooky, but it scared the shit out of me until I saw the fucking beaver.
If anyone is interested, I have another Nike story from the following weekend. We went camping again because our previous trip was cut short.
Do it, even though the first one was obviously a bit bullshit.
Not really. The part with the weasel was word for word how I remember it happened, and I really did stab a deer in the face with a Glock knife, causing him to rip the shit out of our tent. And unfortunately, Nike really did cuddle his raifu. Since Nike and I had to cut our previous camping trip short, I convinced him to go back with me the following weekend to try again. While shopping for a new tent, he told me he wanted to be a serious hunter now that he'd had a taste of the rough and tumble world of car camping. He wanted to know what he could buy at Walmart to be a better hunter. He was upset that all I could recommend was a blaze orange hat since it was deer season. The family farm has always had wild turkeys in Innawoods, but it wasn't until the 1960s that deer showed up. I tell Nike that he can hunt deer and turkeys during the day, but only coons at night. The deer bed down, and the turkeys roost around dusk. He's all hopped up that he's going to shoot a turkey out of a tree, because they're just hanging out and there's no leaves, in a manner that sounds like because it's your dog from Road Trip. I took this time to seed his imagination with more woolly bullies to make sure the next trip was just as interesting. I think he caught on about the time I suggested we watch The Prophecy. It's the one from the 70s about the lumber mill, not the one from the 90s about Christopher Walken's personal life. So Friday rolls around, and we leave right after work. This means it's well after dark when we get there. I start putting the new tent together and task Nike with putting together a campfire. He wanders off and returns a few minutes later with some branches in tow. He spends a few minutes breaking them down and then attempts to light the fire. It's been a good 30 minutes since we've arrived. The tent is assembled and I've unpacked, but we have no campfire. Again, there's now a pretty good amount of dew on the ground and everything is getting damp. I ask him how he's doing and he's bitching about crappy matches. I go to look and he's on his 5th or 6th pack of paper matches, trying to light full-size sticks. Perplexed RPG trainer.jpg. Time to break out the big guns. Luckily, I had previously made some of the old gas and styrofoam napalm. I sliced up a few of the sticks, made a nice chimney, and applied napalm. It took pretty much the whole pickle jar to get the fire started, which seemed like a lot at the time. I had to babysit it for a good 20 to 30 minutes. After the fire really gets going, I notice there's steam coming out of the ends of the sticks. I ask Nike where he got the sticks from, and he points at the far corner of the pond. After I run out of names to call him, I make him cut up all the remaining sticks to add them to the fire, then go into the woods and find more wood for the fire. He takes his SKS cause of dem shitweasels, the machete, and the big mag light his dad gave him. He comes running back in like 5 minutes, tells me he thinks he found a Sasquatch. I'm still pissed about the wet wood and yell, We don't have any goddamn Sasquatches here. I grab my SAR-1 and my spotlight, and we go marching off to the trees to see what the hell this dumbass found. I half expect it to be a funny-shaped tree and half expect it to be a paper Sasquatch. He's hung in a tree as a joke. We get about 30 feet into the tree line, and he's really disturbed. He's walking slow and his flashlight is really darting around. We don't get much further into the woods and we start to smell something dead. Nike's like, see, it's a skunk ape. They smell like dead animals. I'm like, dead animals smell like dead animals. You didn't see anything? You just smelled shit. Immediately I drop my shields and figure we'll stumble on a carcass here in a second, because it really smells bad. I'm just tromping around kicking leaves, shining my flashlight at the ground, trying to find whatever's dead. Then we hear this low, gurgly, growly sound, and both of us freeze. I look at him, and his eyes are huge. I shift my weight so I can turn a little, and whatever it was did it again. At this point I'm thinking, great, we just walked up on a big cat who was trying to eat something, and I'm either going to get mauled or shot in the back when Nike flips his shit. I'm slowly scanning with the spotlight, looking for eye shine and getting ready to turn around and whisper to Nike that we need to start backing away slowly. The thing gurgles at us again and Nike breaks into a gallop towards me screaming, "I told you!" He's maybe one step away from being right behind me, and the ground to my 10 o'clock, about 8 feet out, fucking explodes. This thing is shrieking. Nike's screaming. There are leaves everywhere. All I have time to say is something like, "Fuck me," as this thing takes flight into the night. Nike's like, "What was that?" I'm like, "It was a goddamn dinosaur vulture." He's like, "Jesus Christ. I thought you said birds all roost at night. That thing was on the fucking ground." Without thinking, I say, "Well, maybe it's Vulture Christmas and he had the night off." I was hoping to spook him with some fox squeals or some rodent hopping around in the leaves, and instead, I've got skid marks in my drawers from a 30-pound vulture. We had fun the rest of the weekend and nothing else out of place happened.
I don't know how to explain it, but in 2013, I was camping with some friends in southern Missouri, and I had a feeling like I was going to die. Something was just inches behind me all the time, or watching me from somewhere close. There were moments where my eyes swelled up with tears, and at night I couldn't sleep. I was too paranoid. The one time I did manage 6 hours of prolonged sleep, I had a nightmare about being dragged into the creek by something I couldn't see. Its hands were huge, and it held me underwater until I drowned, but I couldn't fight back other than digging into its wrists. I really messed the entire trip up. It was my idea to begin with. I told everyone I was just feeling sick to avoid looking like a putz. I could have gotten it on with this Albanian girl that was stupid hot, but when she started getting friendly, I felt so sick that I could barely speak. The thing is, when we first arrived, I was okay. The first night I was okay, but the hiking next day is when it set in. It was just this deep feeling of dread, anxiety, and paranoia. I felt like I was going to die. When we left, the feeling fell right off, and I was okay. I felt calm and like I usually do. I don't know if that's spooky or not, but it was frightening for me.
Let me tell you a story my dad told me from when he was a kid. My dad was out squirrel hunting not far from where we live now. His buddy is with him, and they're walking the trail, popping some squirrels. Then they stop seeing squirrels and all the birds just stop. He hears some rustling like someone walking towards them. It stops just in the thick part of the woods where it's not visible. All they hear is breathing. Everything else is dead quiet. They're pretty spooked, so they load up some buckshot and start walking backwards, facing where the breathing is coming from. It's following them step for step, shaking trees as it's moving. When they stop, it stops. They beeline for the beach buggy they rode up in. And the area they were hunting isn't too far from our house. For more spoopy, be out walking with my dog out on the land, letting him chase rabbits and shit. Suddenly he catches wind of something and runs towards the tree line. Freak out calling for him because we have a big-ass hog around that can mess him up. He doesn't listen. Barking while running, he gets about 10 feet from the tree line and tucks his tail between his legs and runs back to me, hiding behind my legs. Have a zebra stripe on my underwear at this point because I only have a knife on me. Hear a grunting squeal come from the woods. Never heard a hog sound like that. Take off running for the house. Dog runs ahead of me and leaves me for dead. Reprimand the dog when I get back. My grandparents lived on the farm forever. When I was a kid, my grandfather told all the grandkids there was a panther that lived deep in the woods called the galloping stretcher. It would only come out at night and it would eat you if it caught you. We'd be sitting on the front porch late at night and hear a screech owl singing us his people's song. And my grandfather would be like, "Oh, that's the galloping stretcher. We better go inside." All the grandkids were always home before dark.
From the Midwest, working out on the East Coast, trying to make a buck like everyone else. Get down on my luck, truck breaks down, no money. Try to thumb my way back home. Find my way at some crossroads in rural Alabama. See this big rig in the distance behind me. I get a good happy feeling when I heard those air brakes. I opened the door and he greeted me with a grin. He said to me, "The name's Paulie, and this is Banshee 202. I asked him why he gave his truck such a name. He said, "Well, this rig will top all them other ones." I didn't ask the stranger anything else about it, so we're driving along. He told his stories. I told mine. I smoked up all his luckies. Man, it was a nice rig. The dashboard was lit up like a pinball machine. A serious semi-truck. Go further down the road. I see the lights of a truck stop up ahead. Paulie said, "This is where you get off, son. I gotta make a turn up here." I said, "All right," but before I get out, he hands me a buck and says, "Go in there and get yourself a coffee on old Paulie." I say thanks and go into the truck stop. That truck disappeared so damn quick as it went down that road. Clean out of sight. I order me a cup of coffee, think Paulie is setting me up. It got so deadly quiet in that place, you could have heard a pin drop. The waiter's face turned real pale. I asked if I did something wrong. He said, "Nah, you see it kinda happens now and then. Everyone in here knows Paulie." Let me tell you a story. It was 10 years ago out there at those crossroads. There was a busload of kids and they were right at the top of the hill. Paulie was coming up the hill and he turned the wheel when he saw them. He jackknifed that truck. Folks here say he gave his life for that bunch of kids. It was the end of the line for Paulie and Banshee 202. But it's funny, every now and then old Paulie will give someone a ride. "So here, son," he said to me with a big old grin, "I want you to hang on to that dollar as a souvenir from Paulie and Banshee 202.
All right, I'm gonna tell /K/ a story and most of you will say bullshit, but I ain't gonna be fussed. My folk were on the third ship to transport colonists to New Zealand. Our origins are hazy, but there's a lot of Celtic blood in us. Anyway, after he landed, the old bastard decided he needed to move south, so he drags the family off to the most remote southern part of the country he can find and sets up shop on the southeastern coast in the middle of nowhere. He builds a cabin and all the usual shit. There's a rather nice farm there now, not modern, but nice. Big swamp for peat, some bays full of seals and seafood nearby. But the forest, the only way to describe it is old. Europe thinks it has old forests, but this one is ancient, primitive, and primal. You can just feel it. Anyway, at some point the old man found what we call the tops. Don't know why, don't care. There are 3 places is the best word for it. One where everything feels new and fresh, and there is a kind of energy in the air. Another with some ancient Rimu as the centerpiece. This place feels old, the oldest place I have ever been, but there is a kind of stillness there, like an eternity. The last is a soggy hollow with stagnant marshy ground and bleached white stumps of fallen trees and spikes of branches sticking out of the moss-covered ground. It feels like decay and aging, and isn't a pleasant place to be in general. Ever since then, the family line only ever had children in 3s, an elder son to hold the land, a younger son to hunt the land, and a daughter to worship the land. Sounds crazy, right? It gets better. There are 3 important nights, solstice and the nights either side. Starting at age 8, you spend the night sleeping in the tops, and I'm not talking camping, just sleeping in the swamp, half submerged in the stagnant bog. Solstice is spent in the old top. I have a nice hollow in the roots of an ancient kauri. It just feels natural. The night after is spent in the new top, on a bed of thick ferns. Every year since we came to the country. I am the younger son, the son who hunts the land. I grew up making reed snares and flint knives and spending all my free time in the bush. I left to get schooling, but I still spend my free time in the bush. And shitposting on /k/. But my grandparents think I'm far too modern, and no good will come of this. What can I say? Civilization is too tempting. They only got electricity in the 90s, and you can't get reception out there.
Be me, mentally ill Neet. Been obsessed with Aztec god Xolotl for months, have tried invoking him. Be on a midnight walk. Notice streetlight flicker. Think it's funny because it's like a horror movie trope. Try to make it flicker more. Concentrating on Xolotl's power over electricity and Olin. Start thinking about how I'm under a power line. And this could go wrong. Stop after a bit with no success. The power line starts flickering right after I stop. Giggle because it's like Xolotl is pranking me. Walk a little more. Notice an owl, could be another large brown bird, fly by a streetlight, headed east. Never seen that here before. Try to take a picture but fail. Think about how owls have usually negative supernatural connotations across the Americas. Think about Mexican brujas. Walk 1 minute more. Hear 2 loud explosions, one right after another. See light on the trees. Seems to come from the east, where the owl went. Stand stunned, unsure of what to do or the cause. Wonder if this was gunfire and I should take cover. Wonder if I or Xolotl caused the explosion. Cop car passes by. No sirens on, so it probably isn't gunfire. Decided to go home. Hear more explosions later. I checked the internet in the morning, but I couldn't find anything. Fast forward to yesterday. I decided to check the internet again to see if there's anything new. Discover it's this whole mystery and an explosion was heard that night for miles. One person spotted a fireball in the sky over 10 minutes before. Xolotl is a god of heavenly fire, but I experienced the explosions at significantly different times, and multiple rather than just one.
Working security in a warehouse to pay for college. Sit around in the manager's office overlooking the entire warehouse all night. Usually on my laptop, play Red Orchestra 2 in between walkabouts and shitpost on /k/ stormy night. Perfect night to lurk. K's spoopy story threads, reading Greentext about the guy who was with his grandpa and brother in the snowy woods. Thunder claps, my ass puckers. Take a sip of my coffee, decide I need to check things out, walk around the warehouse, check outside and look around as I patrol. Power goes out, grab my flashlight. Phoenix TK60, implying darkness is near me. Have a flashlight on a moderate setting to save battery. Walking around to find the fuse box, can't find the fuse box. Head back to the office to find the boss's house number and tell him the situation. Hear a window break. Grab my 92 FS from the holster and get ready to remove Skinwalker. Scan the warehouse floor from the office with light. Can't see anyone or anything down there. Yell out, "I'm armed and allowed to use force. Leave the warehouse." No response beyond the pitter-patter of rain on the roof. Have to go check out the broken window. Call the police station first and let them know about the possible break-in. Say they'll have an officer over. Start walking around and searching for signs of break-in. Find broken glass on the floor. No window nearby. Look around quickly. Look up. Notice the window that's 20 feet up is broken. Either someone threw a rock or a ninja broke in and dropped on the floor unharmed. Start heading back to the office so I have the vantage point. See movement out of the corner of my eye. Point light, skinny fucking person standing. Bum rushes me. Turn on flashlight strobe, blind the fucker, try to sidestep, get knocked to the floor. Person gets up, fire 3 rounds before attacks again. Body goes limp. Get up and call for an ambulance as well as urge the cops to hurry. Wait until I hear sirens outside. Let cops in and EMT to deal with the body. EMT points out something. I have a needle in the back of my shoulder. Stabbed by a junkie with a needle. Drop to floor thinking I have the injected death sentence. Junkie on the floor is dead. The body is hauled off. I'm just sitting there in shock, wondering. I called my boss and told him what happened. 30 minutes later, he shows up. I get taken to the hospital, get told the junkie wasn't infected with anything but that the needle could have been anyone's. Get told I have to wait 3 weeks before I would test positive if I got infected. Spend next 3 weeks thinking shit over. Don't want to hang out with my girlfriend. Spend time doing schoolwork. At night, ponder whether or not to off myself if I have it. 3 weeks have passed. Take the test. Wait until results. Spend another few days on my own. Any friends and family I talk to are baby-stepping the subject. Feel like an outcast. Get results. Negative. My face when.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.